Hi, friends. Tony DeWitt here, Missouri appellate attorney and a guy who likes to make the law make sense on YouTube. Here's what we're discussing today. Adam Montgomery's jury has less than they need to decide this case, and they also have more than they will likely ever be able to forget. It is an interesting paradox in that sometimes the more information you give a jury, the more difficult that decision becomes because you have to play evidence off of various different people who testified. One of the things that's probably not apparent to people who don't try cases on a regular basis is that one of the things that trial lawyers try to do, and this is especially true in civil law, is we try to structure our proof so that it comes in a logical and very fluid way. For example, in a medical negligence case, we might bring in the wife of the decedent, and then we might bring in the adult son or the adult daughter, and then we might bring in a friend who happened to be close to the family and was aware of the problems that this person had at the hospital. And then in that way, one witness leads to another witness, and they basically supply the foundation for the next person who's going to testify. And in that way, you, particularly if you are the plaintiff, you get to put all of the evidence of the bad stuff in first in an orderly and very logical way. And of course, when you're suing a doctor, well, the doctor is going to be there, but the witnesses that you get to testify against the doctor, who are also doctors, they get to come when they want, and sometimes that's on day one of the case, and sometimes it's on the last day of the case, and sometimes it's not even that. Sometimes you wind up having to play their video deposition. Although it's somewhat difficult to get a civil case tried in terms of getting witnesses scheduled, the state has a really big problem, and I'll discuss that in just a second. One way that you can sometimes deal with witnesses who are reluctant to come is you give them an incentive to come. We had a nursing home case in St. Charles County, Missouri, and we were doing depositions in a hotel in downtown St. Louis. One of the witnesses was a critical witness, and she testified she didn't have a car, that her boyfriend could drop her off, but then she had no way to get back home. And so we said, look, here's what we'll do. We'll put you up in the hotel for the night, and you can go down to the hotel cafe and eat dinner and do that on us, and then tomorrow you can go in and give your deposition. That's what we did, and this was for a deposition, but again, witnesses can be kind of prickly sometimes, and so we did that. And she was a critical witness. She gave us the testimony that we needed to have, and then when we got the bill from the hotel, it was for $450 rather. It was for steak and lobster and spa treatments in addition to the room that we paid for. You have to be really careful with witnesses, and you can certainly do things to try to get them to testify. But if we had known that she was going to abuse the privilege like that, we probably would not have done what we did. We probably would have just paid for the room and then basically turned off the credit card after that. The state doesn't have the advantage of being able to put witnesses up in hotels in most cases, and criminal trials almost always involve criminal witnesses, either co-conspirators or people who knew the defendant because they did business with him on a criminal level. And as a result of that, you wind up with these criminal witnesses who are difficult to get to court. And sometimes they're difficult to get to court because they can't get to court on their own cases. They're certainly less willing to get to court on the state's case. And a lot of times when that happens, particularly if they're under subpoena, you just send out the sheriff or, in some cases, the local police and have them detained and brought into court that way. It doesn't make for a very polite witness, and it certainly makes for I would say, an irascible witness, but it does get the person there so that they can testify. Some people are very responsible. So as a result of being very responsible, people with families, people with jobs, people with expectations about how their time will be spent, you have to schedule them in to testify in a way that makes it or takes advantage of their good nature, but also gives them some room to live their life. One of the things that came out the other day, one of the witnesses who was testifying testified that he had called off the night before. He worked a night shift. He said he called off because he wanted to make sure he got to court the next day. A very responsible witness. But like I said, some of these people are so responsible that they have birthdays, they have family trips, they have vacations. Sometimes they have tragedies like family members who go into the hospital. All of those things can impact scheduling. So in a state's case, you oftentimes have witnesses that come in and appear sort of out of order. And that's very troubling, but by the same token, you've got to get their testimony in. Well, I point this out because this witness, this transport worker here, this witness would have been an excellent person to put on right after Kayla Montgomery. I'm guessing that they couldn't have done that because it didn't work out with the flow of things. But she witnessed an interaction between Kayla and Adam. She had worked for them as a driver. She worked for a transport service that was paid by Medicaid to transport people who are insured by Medicaid. Now, the motion in limine said that they couldn't ask her about anything that Kayla may have told her. And of course, anything that Kayla may have told her would be hearsay. It would be an out-of-court statement offered for the proof of the matter. And because it would be offered in that way, you can't have it. And we know that there's a motion in limine and that the judge has ruled that that's hearsay because every time she starts to say, well, Kayla told me or Kayla asked me, he cuts her off. Let's watch a little bit of this video.
Roseanne Smith, Roseanne Smith. Okay. Most people call me Rose.
Okay. Ms. Smith, let me ask you with regards to, are you currently a New Hampshire resident?
I am.
And how long have you been living in New Hampshire?
Since about 1980.
1980. And how far did you go in school?
High school and then some college.
And with regards to work history, what are some of the different jobs you've had in your time?
I was a child care provider. I am currently a yoga teacher, and I drive for a non-emergency medical transportation company.
Ms. Smith, you said you drive sometimes for was it a medical care transportation?
It is a non-emergency medical care transportation service, and that is fueled by Medicaid.
And what's the name of that service?
That's Pelican Transportation.
Do you still drive for them?
I do.
And how long have you been doing that?
For 5 years.
5 years, okay. For providing those sort of transportation services, could you just explain to the jury briefly what your day-to-day interaction kind of looks like with a different patient who needs transportation for medical services?
Yes, I provide service to recovering addicts going to methadone clinics, to kidney dialysis patients going for kidney dialysis. I bring people to Easter seals. So I provide a service to people who cannot drive themselves.
Okay. Let me ask you, are you familiar with a person, and did you ever drive a person by the name of Kayla Montgomery?
I have.
And have you ever driven a person by the name of Adam Montgomery?
Yes, I did.
Where did you give them rides to? I'm sorry, what kind of rides did you give them? What services did you drive them to?
I drove them primarily to the methadone clinics.
Just as an aside, isn't it crazy that Medicaid pays for grown men and women, and by the way, their children, to go from one end of town to the other to get their methadone fix? That astounds me. Now, I understand addiction is a medical problem. It is also a character problem, in my view, and I wonder sometimes if everybody understands that their tax dollars are being spent in that way. I hope that they do, and I hope that they ratify it, that they believe that that's a good thing. But I personally think that I would be a little bit more judicious in how I spent those funds because, particularly with addicts, in most cases, you're fighting a losing battle. I think probably the only reason Kayla is ever going to be able to break her addiction is because she's in prison, and it's a lot more difficult to get drugs there. Back to the video.
With regards to the two of them, would you drive both of them at the same time, one at a time, the entire family with children? How would you drive them?
Family. I would drive the entire family, and they would go in and dose, and I would sing Baby Shark with Declan and Seamus.
And those were the two children that they had with them?
That's correct.
Okay. And did they have a child with them named Harmony?
No, they did not.
I'd like to ask you specifically about one particular incident in 2020 with regards to a ride that you gave Kayla Montgomery. And what I'd like to ask you about this is with regards to a conversation you may or may not have had then with Adam Montgomery, okay? Mm-hmm. All right. You have to say yes or no. I'm sorry. It's how we record here.
Yes.
All right. Do you know the incident that I'm talking about?
I do believe I have.
Okay.
It was
So
2021, right around March and spring. Well, hindsight is 2020. It was around 2021 that the incident happened.
Well, then that's what I'd like to ask about. March of 2021. Thank you for correcting me. So in March of 2021, would you say, would you or would you not agree that this incident was not like other this driving was not like other driving that you've done for them?
Absolutely, it was something I will never forget.
Okay.
And ma'am, I'm going to need you to raise your voice. It's a big room, and everybody here needs to be able to hear you.
Okay.
Thank you.
It was not like other rides.
Okay. I'd like to ask you, when you first did you see Kayla Montgomery on that day for this particular ride?
Yes, I did.
And without going into what Miss Montgomery said, when you saw her face, how did she appear to you?
Her left eye was badly bruised and starting to swell shut.
Did you drive her that day down to the methadone clinic?
I drove both of them that day.
Okay. And with regards to, pardon me, excuse me, with regards to that drive, had you driven Miss Montgomery the day before?
Yes, I had.
Did she have that black eye the day before?
No, she had not.
So on that day when you drove her down to the methadone clinic with the black eye, who else was in the car with you and Miss Montgomery?
Adam.
Adam. And by that you mean Adam Montgomery?
That's correct.
Were Declan and Seamus with them on this drive?
I do not believe so. I think Kayla said she left them with a neighbor.
Hold on just a
Oh,
second.
okay.
I don't want to ask what Kayla said quite yet. So
Okay.
I appreciate that.
Okay, the children were not in the car with them that day.
Okay. So they were not with him that day. When you saw Kayla with the black eye and you were driving down to the methadone clinic and back, how was she moving in her car? Could you describe physically what you saw in terms of her movements?
She didn't move very much, and she didn't say very much because Adam was in the car.
Okay. At some point in time, did you pull out your cell phone? And can you
had.
take?
She had asked to use.
Hold on just a minute, Ms. Smith. I'm sorry. I can't ask you what she said to you.
No.
So I just want to talk a little bit about what happened in the car.
Okay.
Physical movements, okay?
Yes.
And I apologize. That's on me. I should ask more clarifying question or a more specific question. With regards to the drive to the methadone clinic,
Yes.
did anything occur in the car on the drive down to the methadone clinic?
No.
Okay. And then for the drive from the methadone clinic on Market Street back to Union Street.
Yes.
Let me ask you, the event that I want to ask you about, did that occur when you were back at Union Street?
Yes.
Okay. When this event occurred, where was Kayla?
In the front seat beside me,
Okay. And where was Adam at this point?
walking away from the car.
Okay. And with regards to there with Kayla, what, if anything, did you try to give Kayla?
I tried to give her my phone.
Okay. What did you believe she was going to do with the phone?
She said, well, I can't do, she said.
No.
He wanted to call for help.
Okay. And with regards to that, how was she physically at the time? I know you've described the black eye already. How was she physically when you went to try to give her the phone?
She was shaky.
Where was Adam when you tried to give her the phone?
He was walking back towards the car, but
And so at that point, you said he was walking back towards the car?
I didn't see Adam there. I saw rage. Saw pure rage walking towards me.
What did Adam do as he... And were you in the driver's seat?
Yes.
And where was Kayla?
Beside me in the passenger seat.
And what did the defendant do?
He reached into the window of the car and twisted my phone out of my hand and said, "You're not giving my wife that phone."
What did you say to him when he did that to you?
I looked at him and I said, "Adam, I love you. Please give me the phone back. I'm trying to help you guys."
What did he do then?
He then gave me the phone back and I was able to give it to Kayla.
Did he say anything else?
No.
So that you begged him for the phone back,
I begged
essentially.
him for the phone back. I did report that
Let me ask about that. You said you reported that.
to my boss, not the police. I reported that to my boss, and I told her that I didn't think I should be picking them up anymore, that I had been very frightened by what had happened, and thereafter I carried pepper spray.
There was a brief cross-examination after this with essentially the public defender asking, he gave it back and you told him you loved him, right? Basically trying to undo the damage that had been done. But it did not do anything in terms of, it certainly didn't undo the damage that had been done by that testimony. The bottom line is that even though, she said she loved him, she's trying to help him, he gives the phone back, she still was so scared she didn't want to ever drive those two again. And that says a lot. There are some people that you can just tell are kind and nice and who really do want to help. And I think that was this Roseanne Smith, or Rose is what she said people call her. I think Rose Smith did a laudable thing of trying to help Kayla Montgomery. And she found out pretty quickly that, Adam was not only very possessive, but he was also very secretive. He didn't want Kayla to be able to call for help. Again, if this had come in right after Kayla's testimony, it would have been tremendously buttressing, particularly on the idea of her being scared of Adam Montgomery. It seems that Adam Montgomery had a penchant for blackening people's eyes, both Harmony's and Kayla's. It is a sad thing when somebody resorts to violence as the first choice in every instance, and that certainly seems like what Adam Montgomery did here. This is a tragic case. It's certainly, like I said, the jury has less than they need to decide this case because they're never going to have a body. They're never going to have a forensic exam to be able to tell them what caused this little girl's death. And there's no eyewitnesses other than Kayla, and she has a history of, lying under oath. There is just so much here that the jury misses. And then having had to listen to how her remains were transported and dealt with, that had to be very traumatizing. This is a case where if you're a juror, you're going to go home and you're going to have nightmares, irrespective of what you might do. You're probably going to need counseling after this is done, because this is such a horrific case. And it's really sad that we have to put 12 people through that to essentially make Adam Montgomery, pay for his crimes. But that's the way our system works. I have been really fascinated by this case in that I can find a lot of fault with both the prosecution and the defense. And I guess it seems like I'm a bit of a naysayer in that regard. But if I don't point out what I see, then you don't get the full information that you need to sort of judge how things are going and what might be happening inside the jury room later on. So Hopefully you have found this useful and helpful. If so, again, I appreciate all the positive comments that I get, and I appreciate the fact that many of you have subscribed. Thank you so much for doing that. It means a lot to me. If you have any questions, put them in the comments down below. And if you would, go out of your way today to do something nice for someone. If we all do one little nice thing every day for someone else, just a random act of kindness, together we can change the world. Thanks again for watching, and catch me down here at the beach again next time. I try very hard not to be like all those other YouTubers who open up every video by asking you to subscribe before you've even seen the content. But now that you've gone a few minutes into the content, if you find this interesting and helpful, please subscribe. I'd consider it a personal favor. If you like this video, here are a few others you might try, and don't forget to subscribe. Have a terrific day, guys.